He'd have another 20 horsepower or 20 more than the other guy had. It just worked better because the handling was the answer to most everything at Milwaukee.
The other thing that's happened in the last 30 or 40 years is everybody assumes that IndyCar racing has become there's too many road races, there's not enough ovals, and that's partly because we can't get anybody to show up at ovals anymore, even though the racing's still good. But what people don't realize is how many road courses you guys ran in the 60s. When you were the champ in 1968, there were 28 IndyCar races, and 7 or 8 of them were on road courses. And I think your first IndyCar win was at Mossport on a road course, was it not? Wasn't that your very first?
Yeah, first two that I won, both of them that day.
So you were a good road racer. Ruby was a good road racer. Obviously, Gurney and Parnelli were good road racers. The WAP, your brother, Big Al.
Yeah.
There was this great group of guys that were good on the dirt, they were good on the pavement, and they were good road racers. So USAC in the 60s not only had the 4 greatest divisions in racing, and in the 70s, these guys, Bobby ran it was a shit box, but it was the BRM with the big wing.
Oh, terrible.
But I mean, Formula One wanted these guys to run, and he did. How you probably drove some shit boxes in Formula One, like the BRM.
Yeah, well, you go racing, you're always going to finish up driving some shit.
But what I'm getting at is what was cool is when Clark and Stewart and Hill and Rent and Brabham came over and ran the Indy 500 against the American heroes. The 60s, the mid 60s, it was the golden era. It was the greatest. The cars were all different. Everybody had a different car, and you suddenly had this great conglomeration of talent. And I really think in the 60s, it was probably the 33 best drivers in the world. I don't think there's any doubt about it. It hasn't been that way since the 60s, and it'll never be that way again because Formula One guys can't do it. Did you ever seriously entertain a thought of going to run a season in Formula One, or did you ever get approached?
Since I was a little kid, I wanted to run Formula One, and I also wanted to run Le Mans. And Le Mans I never did get done because it was always a conflict with timing. But the Formula One car I got done. It's just unfortunate. Goodyear, it financed probably the worst team that year. And sure enough, I got the worst car that year. But then there was, the good Lord has a lot to do with how things come out on that, I think. Also, the night before the Formula One race up at Watkins Glen, and we were doing a basketball game down here in Indianapolis with the press. An old dumb good athlete, Bobby Unser, jumps up to catch a ball or something, came down and broke my right ankle. And I've got to go run the race the next day. I'm just going to get my airplane, fly up to Watkins Glen, have a nice race. But my dang ankle was hurting too bad. And the steering shaft used to go down right between the throttle and the brake, so you couldn't use your left foot and brake it and stuff like that. You had to use both feet. The right foot had to do the throttle and the brake. The left foot had to do the clutch. And I just couldn't do it. So I went down to the doctor at the racetrack and told him, I said, hey man, I got a problem with my foot here. I couldn't tell him too much, otherwise he'd tell you to go home. And I says, could you just give me a little Novocaine shot in there, make it feel a little better? And he said, no, and he got some pills, and he gave me a handful of pills. He says, here, just take these. Jesus. I took those, I went over to the water fountain, and didn't take just one. He gave me almost no instructions. I just took the whole handful of them down. Went out on that racetrack and broke that race car so bad you couldn't even tell what it was. Knocked all 4 wheels off of it. I obviously was drugged all to hell. And then they had a spare car for me.
Oh, great, yeah.
But I still can't shift it any better than I can the car I just broke.
Right.
So it was a lost cause. And one time we were going to Italy. Mario and I were going, but we had to run the Hoosier 100 here first. And then we were going to we go to Italy.
Think about this travel plan, folks. Listen to you hear this travel deal.
There's no bed in the meantime, no hotel in the meantime of my talking. We run the racetrack here. We get on an airplane.
No, first you go to Italy and qualify for the Italian Grand Prix.
First we went over there and qualified. Then we got to come back because the next day we're going to run the Hoosier 100.
On the dirt, at the fairgrounds.
Yeah, total different type of racing. And we do that, and there's no way to get any sleep because there's no time. And so right after the Hoosier 100, then we get back on the airplane and we go back to Italy and go back to the Formula One race, which was really a lot of traveling. And so what I would do is I'd talk to the girls real nice, and we had first class tickets. That was nice. But I'd lay across the floor and then soft soap the girls, give them a couple of bucks if I had to step over me, because I'd use that for my bed, because you can't sleep in a seat very well, you know. And that's the way Mario and I had to do it all the way going down and back. Well, in the meantime, I'd sit that beautiful girl that Rob was talking about to Italy, and my mother went down, and Mario's wife. We were going to have the race at Indy and then have a little vacation while we were over there. When we got off the airplane, and whatever the heck town it was in, because we were racing Monza, right? And Mario has me drive. Now, I don't speak the first word of English. I don't speak it, I don't write it.
Italian. You speak English.
I didn't understand. I couldn't read the signs, not a damn thing. And the WAP just kept telling me, go, 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 run the red lights. Well, they had those guys on those little steps, wooden steps, little square things. They put them out in the middle of the intersection. They can't catch us, so we just go and drive by them. We'd have to stop the other cars. We ran down the sidewalks. Cops chased us on foot. No cops had cars. And we make it all the way to the racetrack, which I never know where I'm going. Mario would just say, turn right here, turn left here, stuff like that. And we get down to the racetrack. Now there's thousands and thousands of people there, but the Italian army is also there. And so there's a guy standing there with a little rat-a-tat-tat, and he's telling me don't go. And the WAP keeps saying, go, 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 go. We only had about 15 minutes to get in our cars. We didn't know that they'd said we couldn't run yet. We thought it was still okay. So Mario just said, go, go, go. So I stood on the gas and hit that guy and up over it, hit the windshield. He slid off, and when he stood up, he clicked that thing off of safety, and I was afraid he was going to start pulling the trigger. And I finally told the WAP, I said, you better start talking to this son of a bitch, because I really think he might shoot me. Because Mario wouldn't talk any Italian. He just refused to do it. He doing one of his funny things. So then we got into the racetrack and figured out they'd already decided, the FAA had, that they weren't going to let either one of us start the race. Cars were just going to be parked.
Because they said it was too much. They had to have 24 hours between. These guys were too tired. You can't do as many races as you're going to do, even though they busted their ass to get back there. Then they didn't get. They went through all that not to get to run in Italy.
And we're sure that they made these rules up. We're in our minds, we're at least 90% sure that they made these rules up just for the Americans that came over. Mario had a really good car. That car wasn't worth a hoot, but he could have won the race with the car he had. See? So at any rate, we headed off to hell with it. We just did a vacation in Italy. Borrowed a couple of cars, I think, from Alfa Romeo. We're going down the freeway one day, and we run them things wide open. Going down this freeway, we come up on this construction stop. Put their big signs up, and Mario just drives right on through it, so I just follow him and drive right on through it too, you know. And so we go down the road about 5 miles. Now the stop, I'm watching Mario. He goes right on through the goddamn thing. And just before I got there, out comes the police with the guns and with the sawhorses and with everything. They're really mad at me. Now, I don't know why they didn't get mad at him, because he's doing the same thing I'm doing. he goes down and parks about a block and a half down the road. And then I'm trying to talk to these cops. They don't speak English, and I dang sure don't speak Italian. And they got my driver's license, and they got my passport and everything, and then I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm in bad shape, don't know how to talk to anybody. So pretty soon the wop starts backing up, he backed down, came back there walking really slow. I says, "Wop, you better start talking to these cops. I think they're going to throw me in jail." He says, "Well, why don't you just give them $5? I says, $5? Is that all they want?" And he says, "Yeah, just give him $5. Everything will be all right." So I pulled out my billfold, still real scared, gave him $5. He gave me my driver's license back, my passport back, and everything, and said goodbye.
Oh, what you could have done in the United Nations is staggering to think about. Okay, let's do a real quick thing. We got 10 minutes to go. I'll name a guy, and you say something
nice about him.
No, this is more fun. Okay. I'll give a name, and you talk about him. AJ Foyt.
And I'm not all supposed to say all good things, am I?
This is about as a competitor. These are all about guys you raced against, the toughest guys. What you remember about them most?
Okay. Very fast, very good race driver. Lies a lot. Does an awful lot of lies.
Lies a lot.
Does a lot of cheating. Absolute cheater. But one of the best race drivers ever got thrown out of whatever he came in.
Mario Andretti.
Totally good. One of the as good a race driver as you ever find any place. Could run anything. He could learn anything. He was a fast learner. He was even fast with the snowmobiles we played on. He was totally a good race driver. And you know, that little guy only weighed 100. When we first started racing, he only weighed 135 pounds. And Foyt couldn't tire him out. Nobody could tire him out. He had a lot of stamina, and he hardly ever made mistakes, except when he hit my car.
A couple of times. All right, Parnelli Jones.
Parnelli was probably the best in the world. Parnelli, in my opinion, was the best at everything that there was, any kind of racing. Didn't make any difference what it was. He just had a knack about him. Nobody ever taught him. He learned it all himself. He just was an extremely good race driver, and he knew chassis really well. In other words, he played a chassis like people dial violins, you know. Foyt did too on that.
Yeah, and there was only 2 or 3 of you. A lot of guys did. Like your brother. Talk about your brother as a race driver and then as a chassis setter-upper.
Well, Al was one of the finest drivers that ever came down the road, but he didn't know that much about chassis setups. If the car was right, nobody could touch Al. He'd be gone, and usually he'd win the race. But if it wasn't, he couldn't make up the difference. He didn't try. He wouldn't try to exert himself over what he should be doing.
That's right.
It's one thing to go out and drive it as hard as you can. It's another thing to try to steal another 10% and give it to somebody.
Well, and his personality is like that. You were always the more outgoing one, and he was kind of the quiet one. I think growing up with you might have inhibited him a little bit. I'm not sure. All right, what about Gordon Johncock?
Gordon Johncock, she couldn't even spell race car. But he was one fast race driver. Had no idea what he was doing. I don't even know how he got into racing or why. Think about all the times we sat down talking with him. Nobody can figure him out.
But he helped you at Winchester once.
Absolutely right. He taught me how to run the high banks. To him, it was so easy. I showed up at Don Shepard's sprinter up at Winchester one day, and I'm out there running. I think I've been breaking world records, just flying. And I come back in, and Shep told me I'm not even going fast enough to miss the race. And I said, geez, I thought I was going fast. He says, see that short guy standing over there? And I said, yeah. I'd never met Johncock yet. And he says, go over and talk to him. And he says, he'll tell you how to get around this place. And I did. I was very humble in those days, and I walked up.
I was very humble those days. Did you hear that?
I walked up to John Cock and I absolutely asked him, what am I doing wrong? He said the same thing, you gotta get up on the racetrack. You can't stay down there at the bottom. That's where the girls run. He says you gotta get up on the racetrack. And he said, then you'll go fast. And I went and did it and it worked.
Dan Gurney.
Dan Gurney was exceptionally smart, good person. I know I argued with him a bit, but nonetheless, he was a very, very good person and knew an awful lot about designing and building race cars, and was very fair, very, very good man. And I'm probably better friends with him today than I was when I was driving for him.
He called you on your 80th birthday.
Yeah, I did.
What about, do you think Gurney was a little underrated? That people maybe didn't, they just associated more with Formula One and not with Indy cars?
Yeah, you know, I kind of liked his wife more than I did him because she's the one that got him to stop racing.
That's right.
It made it a heck of a lot easier for me, you know.
Right. What about our boy Roger McCluskey?
McCluskey was as good as there was. He wasn't as good on a road course as an oval track, but on the dirt, he was an absolute killer. I mean, he was fast, clean, and good. Clean means not getting into wrecks, not getting other people to wrecks, spinning them out, things like that. McCluskey was a good person, and the guy's a pretty good mechanic.
Yeah. What do you think Jim Hurtubise, who was the first guy I really started following, was, you were one of the bravest drivers of all time. Was Hurtubise as brave as anybody ever saw drive a race car?
I think he was. Hurt was, unfortunately, he was a little bit ahead of me on the years that we were back here. And so I got to run with him a little bit, but not all that.
By the time you were really hitting your stride, he was on the other side.
His hands had already been burned.
Yeah.
And he was going down the other side,
he
like
was.
you said, yeah.
How about Johnny Rutherford?
Johnny's a good race driver. Couldn't run a road course worth a hoot. I mean, he was really bad on that.
Do you think the Pennzoil Chaparral was a pretty good car? Johnny Rutherford won the Mid-Ohio road race. Do you think that car had anything to do with it?
He and I did a deal down in Fort Worth here not too long back, and we were talking about that. And I was trying to ask him, how the heck did you go fast one day out of your whole career on a road course? And he did.
He did. He won. He got the trophy.
And he didn't know what made him go fast either.
Yeah.
In other words, he just went fast that day, and that was the end of the story.
Was there, when you're
Always fast on the track, on the oval track.
was your brother Jerry, who lost his life at Indy in a practice crash, would he have been a winner like you and Al? Would he have been a champion? Was he that good?
I think Jerry would have, but it would have taken some time to change him over from the stock cars. He was a factory driver, so he was one of the head guys. But stock cars and race cars, quite a bit different. And especially in those days, they were really different.
So he was more headed toward, stock cars was his, even though he grew up at Pikes Peak like you did, he went right to stock cars, not sprint cars.
Right, and that was only because of the money. In other words, Chevrolet hired Jerry at Pikes Peak. And, you know, they had Marshall Teague, they had Bob Corf. I can't remember who the third driver was. The three hot dog drivers up there. And Jerry just get in any car, and beat them so bad it wasn't even funny. So Chevrolet immediately hired Jerry, and that didn't last very long because Ford Motor Company wanted Jerry more than Chevrolet did. So Ford, they had Troy Robbins, Sam Hanks, Jimmy Bryan, and my brother Jerry. And they run Mercury's and Fords.
Pretty good group of people.
Oh, yes. Good group of guys. And so Jerry really, without his wanting to, just got kind of pushed into the stock car thing. Then he ended up, the year he won the national championship, he ended up running his own car, but it was a stock car again.
Yeah.
See? So Jerry would have had to detune his driving and his thinking a little bit, because he did Pikes Peak. He started out with open wheelers, and of course at Indianapolis he was going to do. unfortunately, didn't last long enough for him.
Yeah, yeah. And he probably would have never lost his life with today's medicine and doctors. I'm sure they'd have saved him.
Because his burns were bad, but not that bad.
Right, right.
No.
All right, we appreciate you guys staying here. Last question for Uncle Bobby. If they bring you and Posey back for the 100th Indy 500, would you accept to be on TV for about 10 minutes?
I don't know. I don't even know if I can spell anymore, you know? I mean,
Spell anymore. All right, folks, thanks for sticking around with Uncle Bobby.
thanks to everybody for coming by,
He's,
especially all the pretty girls.
he's loaning money at 18% if you want to line up out here.